Hello, welcome to the next 6 months. Mark Thomas and me, Peter Cox, exploring what is going to be happening in the next 6 months, some of the big issues that are shaping our future. Mark, we have some questions. Let's just run through a couple. This is from Hannah. Just quickly read it to you. Hannah says, I wonder if charging massive amounts for university fees adds to the downward spiral, or turning vocational colleges to university status plus fees reduces some poverty-stricken people's chances. People in the golden age, and you referred to that a few days ago, had the impression that they could get out of the gutter. Nowadays, there are plenty of people absolutely reliant on social income support who see no way out. And that's pretty damning of the whole system, isn't it? So what do you think to that?
Well, unfortunately, I think she's basically right that we've analysed this. Actually, there's an article on the website called Fixing the Deal, which looks at how 40 years ago, at the end of the golden age, there was a very good deal for normal people, which, as she's hinted, that included not just free healthcare, but free education up to and including university. In fact, I'm so old, I got a government grant, not just covering my tuition fees. I was actually paid a maintenance grant to go to university, as everybody was in those days.
Wow.
And
money well spent. I think we got value for money out of you. Yeah.
Well, absolutely, and indeed with everybody else. That's the thing. It's it does cost people money, but society as a whole benefits from it because you get doctors, you get nurses, and of course, best of all, you get mathematicians.
That's a very good point. Just like you.
Yeah,
that's a very good point.
Yes.
We've got another one. This is from Mark, but it's not you. It's a different Mark. It's Mark 2. Could Mark go over some ways in which the pie, and there's something else you referred to previously, could be shared more fairly to bring an end to mass impoverishment? That's a big question.
Well, it's a very big question, and it's actually quite similar to the topic that we discussed yesterday when we looked at those four types of policy. We said there are four types. Yeah. Every policy either grows the pie or it doesn't, and it either shares it fairly or it doesn't. So I think there's a lot more description in the book than I had time to cover yesterday. But I think the shortest way to answer Mark's question is to say, Mark, please have a look at yesterday's video. And then read the book. Yes,
buy
absolutely.
The book.
Read the
share
book.
it, please.
Share the book. But also, if you just want the 10-minute version, you can look at yesterday's video.
Okay, that's great. Very, very good. Now, today, what it would be good to do would be to talk about economics and politics. A lot of people think they're completely different things. You don't see the division between the two. Can you explain your position, please, sir?
Well, yes, absolutely, because, we tend to think that there are political decisions like, what should happen to school funding or what should happen to benefits or something. Those should be left to politicians. And then there are business decisions like, who's going to build which businesses and so on. And they exist in two broadly separate realms, and they're not connected. Now, in fact, when I was researching the book, it became increasingly apparent to me that not only are these connected in the ways that you might think they would be connected, but they're also connected in some rather more sinister ways. So wealth, extreme wealth in particular, is essentially very close to synonymous with power. And so the first thing that means is that if you're very wealthy, you can get wealthy more quickly. So this diagram that you've got, I think, for this one, shows that there's a kind of self-reinforcing cycle where the wealthier you are, the easier it is for you to afford to get the best advice on where to invest your money. Of course, you've actually got the money when a good investment comes along. You can't seize the opportunity if you haven't got any money, but if you're very wealthy, you can seize it. And of course, very often, just even to know that a certain opportunity, not so much this one, but the one with the cycles, just to know the existence of that opportunity, you have to be moving in the right circles. And we can see that very much so at the moment with the way the government is going about procuring PPE and other services, where it's all going to people within their own circle. So there's a tremendously powerful self-reinforcement where the wealthiest people are going to get wealthier faster, not just in terms of pounds, but even in percentage terms. So COVID, we've seen has been economically very damaging to the world, but it hasn't been damaging to the world's billionaires who've seen their wealth increase this year by 27%. Now, I bet most people would like to have seen their wealth increase by 27%.
It's been good news. Oh, no. That's just a total indictment of the system, really. That's just awful. It really shows. That's just awful.
It is. It's shocking, but it shows the power of that top part of the diagram here with these self-reinforcing circles. But the more sinister bit is the bottom part, because we would like to say, well, we live in a democracy, so it's one man, one woman, one vote. And literally speaking, that's true. But if you were to say, is it one man, one woman, one unit of political influence, then absolutely not. If you're a billionaire, you can own a string of newspapers. And that means that you can have all sorts of impact. You can have direct impact on voters. And because of that direct impact on voters, you can bully politicians. So Rupert Murdoch, of course, is very famous for having said, when I go into Downing Street, they listen. And doubtless that's true. So Rupert Murdoch is not a UK citizen. For tax reasons, he's an American citizen. But he has far more influence over UK politics than any normal UK citizen. So that's one example. And once you get close to the levers of power, which is very, very easy to do if you're a billionaire, if you look at, how easy would it be for me to meet the president? I've never met a president of any country, but Bill Gates has met the presidents of very many countries. Now, doubtless he's more charming than I am, but I suspect that the reason isn't just down to his natural charm, that it's actually got something to do with the fact that he's one of the world's richest men, and so they meet him. And so that means that wealth almost literally translates into power, and it gets used to drive regulations and laws which make you richer. So you can deregulate, you can create tax loopholes or even tax cuts, and you can drive things like privatization, effectively transferring public assets that belong to everybody and getting it into your own pocket. And very often that is what privatization actually results in. That's how the Russian oligarchs got rich. It's not that they built up businesses from scratch. They took over at bargain basement prices assets that had belonged to the Russian people. We are at risk of getting into that kind of situation. So it is a deadly embrace between wealth and power. And one of the things we need to fix is, first of all, to make sure people are absolutely clear-sighted that that deadly embrace exists. And secondly, that we disentangle it. It's one thing to allow people to be wealthy. It's another thing to allow them to use that wealth to have millions or even billions of times more influence than an average person has.
Yes, absolutely. Well said. Well said. I think there are millions of YouTube viewers cheering, even now, actually. Chapter and verse, literally a chapter and verse, and Mark's book, 99%, which you need to get, I think. It's a really important book. The Financial Times named it as one of the best books of the year. Even the Financial Times did. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Do keep the questions coming, please. Write them in the YouTube comment section underneath. We will pick them up and ask them to Mark, and we will be back with you tomorrow.